Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. This session throws light on language teaching methods in Pakistani bilingual context. I hope and expect by the end of this session, you would have some understanding of the Pakistani bilingual context and the use of various teaching methods. Well, my dear students, when it comes to bilingual acquisition, often the term bilingual is used very loosely to incorporate multilingualism. By the part by in bilingualism itself means two. So, genuinely speaking, bilingual would mean a person who is able to use two languages, and bilingualism is the phenomenon of using two languages. And the term multilingualism, the part multi means multiple or more than two. So multilingualism would refer to the phenomenon of using multiple languages. However, when it comes to the literature of language acquisition or of language learning, the terms bilingualism and multilingualism are used in a very, very loose sense. And actually, the term bilingualism also it is used as a term to refer to more than one languages, which can be 2, 3, 4, or as many as intended to. Bhatia 2006 states that the investigation of bilingualism is a broad and complex field, including the study of the nature of individual bilinguals' knowledge and the use of two or more languages. However, the use of the term bilingualism is problematic because the Latin prefix bi, as earlier said, means two. The concept of bilingualism is interpreted differently in the field of second language acquisition versus other fields such as psychology and education. That is, second language researchers reserve use of the term for only those that are truly, as shown through some linguistic measure, the equivalent of native speakers of two languages. Thus, from the perspective of second language researchers, bilingual is a difficult term. Bilingual refers to an endpoint, that is, someone is bilingual, which means someone has learned two languages. Within a second language research context, the endpoint interpretation of the term is generally not a focus of the inquiry. Rather, in second language research, the process of learning two languages is what is referred to most of the times. So, second language researchers, because of their interest in discovering the second language acquisition process, because their focus is on the process, they might focus instead on near native speakers or advanced language learners than exactly the native, mastery. Well, when we come to the Pakistani bilingual context, to understand the Pakistani bilingual context and the use of all these methods, we need to keep in mind various aspects, which include the cultural diversity of Pakistan, where, multiple cultures and subcultures, the provincial cultures, Punjabi, Sindhi, Balochi, Pathan cultures, and then the subcultures within these cultures provide a lot of variety, and there is a lot of linguistic diversity where more than 70 languages are used, where there are a lot of dialects that are used, where there are varieties within varieties, etc. We also need to consider the colonial heritage that is a huge source of the bilingualism that we find in Pakistan. The stream of English is a gift of the colonial experience. We also need to consider the national language issue, where, a lot of speakers are bilinguals because they speak their mother tongue as their provincial or local language, for example, Pashto, Punjabi, Sindhi or Balochi, etc. And alongside, they speak the national language for example, the formal purposes or official purposes. Along with all this, official language adds to the further identity of the bilingual Pakistani speakers, and of course then has influence on, what happens in the context of LTM. Because English has a parallel status with Urdu as an official language of Pakistan, and the issues of power and prestige that are attached to English, they of course play a vital role in determining not only the psychological and emotional mindset of the the bilingual speakers with reference to the choices of language that they make, but also, the nature of the language that is used in varied official contexts. With this, there are provincial and regional languages as well, and the issues of identity and power run as a common thread through all this. We also need to consider the nature of bilingualism in Pakistan from the perspectives that a child learns L1 or mother tongue at home as their provincial or local language, and as the child is exposed to the school, the child is also exposed to Urdu language alongside, in the public sector schools from grade 6th, but in the private schools from grade 1, the child is also exposed to the formal settings where he or she has to learn English language. In all this process, further complexity is added through the processes of code mixing and code switching, where, the speakers, for example, of Urdu in their sentence would intersperse, would mix, would sprinkle the words of English language, or in their local language, they would mix the words of Urdu or of English. And in whole this, in this whole picture of multilingualism and bilingualism, when we look at the teaching methods, grammar translation method emerges as one of the most prominently used methods in the Pakistani social context of teaching and learning languages.